All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to say call Haloyam Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakah Quitash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth and who rule well in this truth. Shalom to the 144,000 and the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel that is scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Peace and mercy unto you, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You are the true Hebrew Israelites that the Bible speaks of. You are the true chosen people of the book of the Bible. All right. So as you see on screen here, I have this article by the People's Voice. All right. Now, the title of this article reads, Study, Artificial Sweetener, Aspartame, could trigger heart and brain damage. All right. Now, this is prophecy in the scriptures. All right. That the children of Israel, all right, everywhere they were scattered, all right, they shall eat their bread and their food defiled. All right. Now, this is also why Yahweh Shai needs to come back. This is why we want Yahweh Shai to come back. OK, because we're living in hell. All right. And this is one of the reasons to prove that we're living in hell. Everything we eat is poisoned. All right. Completely defiled and poisoned. Everything that we eat, especially here in Babylon, aka America. All right, it shouldn't even be considered food or called food. All right, everything that we eat is nothing but drugs, chemicals, poison. You know, when I go to eat something and I go to take a bite of it, I just shake my head because I know I'm eating some bullshit, man. I mean, we try our best to eat all the good foods, all the organic stuff. Organic meats, the fruits and veggies, none of the nonsense. But even so, man, everything that we eat is poison, because even the organic stuff is poison too. All right, I've gone into that. All right, you can find that out going into a book called Population Control by Jim Mars, and we're going to go into that book today. All right. The book Population Control by Jim Mars, all right, it goes into how Esau Edom, starting with the elite bankers, all right, it goes into how all the ways they go about depopulating the masses, all right, because the elites have an agenda to bring forth the new world order, right, and part of that new world order is to depopulate this earth and bring it down, all right, to around 500 million. That's on the Georgia Guidestones. All right, so part of that depopulation process is to put nothing but chemicals and poison, all right, and drugs in the food, man, to destroy the people. All right, and this book Population Control goes into that, as you see right here, aspartame. All right, as you see on screen right here, this is the book Population Control by Jim Mars that I just explained, man. All right, it goes into the aspartame, and you see this article right here. All right, it talks about the artificial sweetener aspartame could trigger heart and brain damage. All right, and this book Population Control goes into that. All right, but this is another reason to show you, all right, that we're living in hell and that we have to get out of here, and that's why Yahweh Shai is coming back to take us up out of this hellhole that we're living in, because right now we're living in hell and in captivity. We're living in great hell, right? In all types of ways. Everything we eat is garbage. The air we breathe is poisoned. The food is poisoned. The water is poisoned. Literally, everything is poison, man. And this book goes into that. Population Control by J. It goes into all that. It goes into the poisoning of the water supply, the food supply. It goes into the chemtrails. The militarization of the police force. All of that. The GMOs, The genetically modified foods, because all that is part of the depopulation process, part of the New World Order agenda. All right, so let's get into it, man. All right, I'm gonna read this article in a second. I might read this last. All right, study artificial sweetener aspartame. All right, could trigger heart and brain damage. All right, sweetener aspartame. See, it's in the toothpaste, the chewable vitamins, cough syrups, diet drinks. All right, chewing gum, cereals, dairy products. Right, it's all up in our food. All right, and our drinks used widely since 1980s, and this book goes into that how it's been used since the 1980s. See, we gonna get let me zoom out real quick, because right now I'm on page 80, right? So let me show you the front cover real quick. All right, so this is population control. All right, by Jim Mars, and I gone into this book many times, many times. I've done lessons on this book about 6 or 7 times. Right, and I want to go into this book again, talking about aspartame. Now that I see this this article here, I want to go into it again. All right, so you got population control by Jim Mars, which goes into all the ways the elites go about to depopulate this earth. All right, poisoning the water supply, the food supply. It goes into the chemtrails, these deadly sweeteners, these deadly GMOs. It goes into the deadly water. All right, the chemtrails. All right, as I go into the table of context, you can see the different chapters, right? All right, chapter 1, depopulation. Chapter 2, the deadly God syndicate. 3, drugs. Chapter 4, deadly medicines. All right, chapter 5, deadly vaccines. All right, chapter 9. All right, deadly foods. All right, which goes into the the fake, the genetically modified foods. All right, chapter 10, deadly grains. Chapter 11, deadly sweeteners. Chapter 12, GMOs. All right, chapter 13, deadly waters. All right, which goes into the water supply. All right, chapter 14, deadly air, which goes into the chemtrails and all of that. You see? All right, but we're going to go into chapter 11, deadly sweeteners. All right, and one of those deadly sweeteners is aspartame. All right, is aspartame. All right, so let's get it. All right, page 80. All right, let me try to. I'm trying to. All right, aspartame. All right, because when we back out, right, what's the name of the chapter? All right, chapter 11, deadly sweeteners. You got Truvia as a deadly sweetener, right? You got Splenda as a deadly sweetener. Now you got aspartame. All right, so let's zoom in and read about this aspartame, and then we're going to read this article as well, which also goes into, the artificial sweetener. All right, and it's laced in your fizzy drinks. All right, your sodas. All right, causing heart and brain damage. Woo! All right, now this is prophecy when you read Ezekiel 4. All right, the 13th chapter, let's read it. This is Ezekiel 4 and 13. It says, "And the Lord Yahweh said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them." Yeah, because we were scattered. All right, the Israelites were scattered, and the Lord said wherever they were scattered, they're going to eat their food defiled, poisoned. All right, this is prophecy. All right, and this is all happening under Esau Edom's watch. The food is poisoned. All right, it's nothing but drugs and chemicals under whose watch? The rulership of Esau Edom, the so-called white man, starting with the elite bankers. All right, because they're the ones that control every aspect, all right, of this earth, man. The every society, the water supply, the food supply, the education system, what goes into the air, right? But let's finally get into this, man. Aspartame. All right, so it says aspartame, Splenda, however, comes out looking great in comparison to aspartame. Yeah, because before you read about aspartame, you read about Splenda, right? And it tells you how dangerous, how crazy dangerous it is. But compared to aspartame, it looks like a walk in the park, like all right. So it says Splenda, however, comes out looking great in comparison to aspartame, described by Dr. Joseph Mercola as by far the most dangerous substance added to most foods today. All right, so aspartame, all right, is considered by far the most dangerous substance added to most foods today. All right? It says sucralose, which became popular in part as a result of health concerns related to aspartame, has gained market share, but aspartame is still used in many foods and drinks. All right, so let's read that again. It says Splenda, however, comes out looking great in comparison to aspartame. Described by Dr. Joseph Mercola as by far the most dangerous substance added to most foods today. Woo! All right, sucralose, which became popular in part as a result of health concerns related to aspartame, has gained market share, but aspartame is still used in many foods and drinks. All right. It says questions about regarding aspartame, which is now not only in diet drinks, but also in thousands of food products as well as over-the-counter drugs. So it's in everything, man. All right, and as you see in this picture right here in this article, all right, you know, chewable vitamins, that's over-the-counter drugs. All right, diet drinks, all right, toothpaste and our foods, man, chewing gums, right? It says questions about regarding aspartame, which is now found not only in diet drinks but also in thousands of food products as well as over-the-counter drugs. All right, the sweetener's history is troubling. All right, the Pentagon once listed it as a biochemical warfare agent. Woo! And this is what's in our food. This is what's in our food. A biochemical warfare agent. That's literally what the food supply is. Everything in the food supply, everything in the food store that you go to buy is nothing but biochemical warfare, man. Literally everything that you eat has nothing but sugar in it. There's nothing that you eat that doesn't have sugar or seed oils, right? Which I've done videos and lessons on that. The seed oils, right? There's a book called Toxic Oil that goes into the seed oils. I've done lessons on that book, all right? Go down my timeline, right, in the search bar and type in toxic oil or seed oils or vegetable oils in the search bar on my page, and those videos will come up, right? It says the Pentagon once listed it as a biochemical war. When you look at the back of foods, right, the ingredients on the back of foods, you'll see vegetable oil, seed like canola oil, sunflower oil, right? You see the sugar, right? This processed sugar, these processed oils. You see dough agents, polysorbate 80, polysorbate 60. All right? Trisodium phosphate. All these damn chemicals, man. All right? This is how much, how wicked and vile Esau Edom is. Cuz he controls the food supply. He has bought the FDA, the elite bankers. They control all these major corporations, these giant, all right, corporations. All right. It says the sweetener's history is troubling. Aspartame is talking about, all right? It says the Pentagon once listed it as a biochemical warfare agent. Then the pharmaceutical company, all right, GD Searle, all right, discovered that aspartame also produced a sweet taste and pressed for government certification. All right. However, in September 1980, an FDA public board of inquiry, all right, concluded aspartame should not be approved pending further investigations of brain tumors in animals. It has been reported that later that year, during a sales meeting, the then CEO of GD Searle, future Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, all right, during a sales meeting, the then CEO of GD Searle, future Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, stated that he planned to use his political pool in Washington to get aspartame approved. You see? All right? Spiritual wickedness in high places. All right? Come on, man. All right? The story is as follows. On the day, all right, hold on, let me see something real quick. All right? It says right here, on the day as President Ronald Reagan's inauguration in 1981, Rumsfeld, as a member of the new administration, was instrumental in the appointment of Dr. Arthur Hall Hayes as FDA commissioner. It says Hayes, who had previously served in the U.S. Army's Chemical Weapons Division, initially approved aspartame as a sweetener powder. All right? Let's read that again. It says Hayes, who had previously served in the U.S. Army's Chemical Weapons Division, all right, initially approved aspartame as a sweetener powder, all right, despite the objections of 3 of 6 FDA scientists responsible for researching it, all right. Dr. Robert Condon, Satya Dubey, and Douglas Park argued against approval, stating on the record that Searle safety tests were unreliable and not adequate to determine the safety of aspartame. All right. It says in 1983, just before he left his FDA position for a public relations job with Burson Marsteller, the chief public relations firm for both Monsanto and Searle, all right, Hayes approved aspartame for all carbonated beverages. So that's all in your carbonated beverages, bro. Your sodas, shoot, probably even your waters. You know, your sparkling waters, right? So all your soda is done up out here. Right, even without that, it's still poisonous. But you got the aspartame mixed with the processed bleached sugar. All right. It says in 1983, just before he left his FDA position for a public relations job with Burson Marsteller, the chief public relations firm for both Monsanto and Searle. All right. Hayes approved aspartame for all carbonated drinks. All right, and Monsanto, all they do is poison the food supply, the crops. They hit the crops with Roundup. All right, this book goes into that. They hit the crops with herbicides, and pesticides and insecticides. All right, which fucking bro, it does shit to the food, bro. It does shit to the food. Poisoning the hell out of it, causing crazy cancer and tumors and brain damage. Literally zombifying the people. It says in 1985, Searle was purchased by the multinational conglomerate Monsanto. There you go. All right, it all makes, you see? All right, in 1985, Searle was purchased by multinational conglomerate Monsanto. All right, which established the NutraSweet company. All right, and we already all know about Monsanto. They buying all these food companies, NutraSweet company, right? Searle. It says NutraSweet was bought by the European firm J.W. Childs Associates in 2000. Aspartame's connection to formaldehyde, a deadly neurotoxin, has raised concerns among many regulators. A 1998 Life Sciences study concluded that aspartame consumption may constitute a hazard because of its contribution, right, to the formation of formaldehyde adducts. All right, two or more compound combined. All right, it says it had. I'm at the top right here. It says it has been established that aspartame releases free methanol that breaks down into formic acid and formaldehyde in the human body. When subjected to temperatures of more than 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's read that again. It says, it has been established that aspartame releases free methanol that breaks down into formic acid and formaldehyde in the human body. When subjected to temperatures of more than 86 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Because our body's what, like 98 degrees on average, right? Body temp. It says normal body temperature. Oh yeah, it says it right here. Normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees. All right. Normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees. All right. 1 quart of an aspartame added beverage is estimated to contain about 56 milligrams of methanol. All right. You see, bro, we got to get the hell out of here. All right. Today, however, the FDA and European Food Safety Authority maintain that aspartame is safe at the levels currently used in food and drinks. All right, which, of course, because the FDA is bought and paid for by the elite bankers, so they come out and say things like this. All right, they're all bought and paid for. Come on, bro. It says, yet aspartame accounts for more than 75% of adverse reactions to food additives reported to the FDA, according to published reports. These include seizures and death. All right. The more than 90 other documented symptoms caused by aspartame listed in a FDA report include headaches, migraines, dizziness, seizures, nausea, numbness, muscle spasms, weight gains, rashes, depression, fatigue, irritability, all right, tachycardia, insomnia, vision problems, hearing loss, heart palpitations, breathing difficulties, anxiety attacks, slurred speech, loss of taste, tinnitus, vertigo, memory loss, and joint pain. All right, and that's all caused by aspartame. All right. It says, according to researchers and physicians studying the adverse effects of aspartame, the following chronic illnesses can be triggered or worsened by ingesting aspartame. All right. So it just gets worse and worse. It says, according to researchers and physicians studying the adverse effects of aspartame, the following chronic illnesses can be triggered or worsened by ingesting aspartame. So the same things that are caused by aspartame, it just gets worse and worse when you keep consuming it. All right, it says the following chronic illnesses can be triggered or worsened by ingesting aspartame: brain tumors, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, chronic fatigue syndrome, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, mental retardation, all right, lymphoma, all right, birth defects, fibromyalgia, and diabetes. All right, all this is caused by aspartame, the deadly sweeteners. All right, all right. It says, despite this laundry list of related ailments, the sweetener, which is sold under a variety of names, including NutraSweet, Equal, E951, Benevia, and Condoro, all right, is ubiquitous. All right, Zachary Shahan, director of Clean Technica, a popular website devoted to science news and conservation, estimates more than 250 million people, or about 2/3 of the U.S. population, consume aspartame in its various forms. All right, academics who have studied the true effects of aspartame find it a thankless job. All right, in 1991, Dr. Janet Starr Hall of OSHA, certified environmental hazardous waste emergency response specialist, a toxicologist, all right, was diagnosed with incurable Graves' disease, all right, a defect in the immunization system that leads to hyperthyroidism. All right. It says only to learn through her own research that she had been poisoned by aspartame. She stated, many scientists at prestigious American universities will tell you they cannot get grants for continued research on aspartame or Splenda, or their department heads have been told to drop all discussions on the topic. All right. Some will say aspartame research isn't worth the effort because they cannot get published in American scientific journals. Of course not. All right. Because, bro, they don't want the truth getting out there. All right. It says others claim the research centers constructed by large corporations such as Duke University's Searle Research Center were designed with managed research as a constructive proviso. All right, of course. All right, of course. Everything is manufactured, designed. You know, come on, man. All right, it says in addition to ethical questions concerning drug corporations funding academic studies. Come on, bro. What do you think, bro? The same people that are the same people that are poisoning you are the ones that are conducting the study. So of course, come on, man. You know, it's yeah. All right. It says in addition to ethical questions concerning drug corporations funding academic studies and research centers, eyebrows have been raised over corporate financing of NutraSweet researchers. Yeah, so of course, it's the people that are poisoning you or causing all these ailments among the people, they're funding the studies. So come on, man. It says, for example, former FDA investigator Arthur M. Evangelista noted that Suzanne Schiffman, all right, named to head a Searle-funded Duke University medical school study into NutraSweet links to headaches, is a former General Foods and Searle consultant. Her research is under the auspices of the Office of University Vice President William Anilot, a former Searle director. Schiffman said she took no salary for the research and that Anilon played no part in Searle's pledge to finance the study, expected to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Other academics mentioned by Evangelista, all right, include Dr. David Hunninghake of the University of Minnesota, who was selected to head a Searle-designed study of aspartame's effects on the liver, all right, by former Searle research director Daniel Azarnoff, all right, formerly Hunningake's mentor at the University of Kansas, all right. Let me read that again. There's a lot of names. All right, you know, it says, for example, right here, for example, the former FDA investigator, Arthur M. Evangelista, all right, noted that Suzanne Schiffman, named to head a Searle uh, funded Duke University medical study into NutraSweet's links to headaches, all right, uh, is a former General Foods and Searle consultant, all right. So Suzanne Schiffman, all right, um, is a former General Foods and Searle consultant. Her research is under the allspices, all right, of the Office of University uh, Vice President William Anelon, uh, a former Searle director. All right, so of course, all right, it says Schiffman said she took no salary for the research, that Anelon played no part in Searle's pledge to finance the study expected to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Other academics mentioned by Evangelista included Dr. Hunninghake of the University of Minnesota, who was selected to head a Searle design study of aspartame's effects on the liver for former Searle research director Daniel Azonoff, all right, former Hunninghake's mentor, all right, at the University of Kansas, all right. It also has been reported that Dr. Louis Stagink, all right, a pediatrics professor at the University of Iowa, who studies since the early 1970s, invariably indicated aspartame safety. All right, it says at one point had received more than $1.3 million in research grants and gifts from the NutraSweet company, according to University of Records. So of course, you're gonna say it's safe. All right, and guess who bought what did we read earlier? All right, that Monsanto bought NutraSweet. All right, it says a long-time research collaborator of Stegnick's, all right, Dr. Jack Filer serves as an executive director of the uh, International Life Sciences Institute, a Washington, D.C. foundation funding aspartame research. All right. Among other things, Filer claims he sees no conflict in his dual roles, all right, as International Life Sciences Institute, all right, executive director, um, in aspartame research, all right, but declined to disclose that ILSI consulting fees. All right. Filer has argued that health problems blamed on aspartame may simply be water load on the brain caused by the overconsumption of liquids. No, nigga. All right. So we'll read a little more. All right. And it causes ASL or ALS. All right. We'll read a little more. It says, such apparent conflicts of interest seem to have prevented inquiry, all right, that is desperately needed, all right, while not focusing specifically on aspartame or other artificial sweeteners, all right. A 2014 University of Iowa study of diet drinks found that otherwise healthy women who were regular consumers of diet drinks were significantly more likely to die from a heart attack or cardiovascular disease. Woo. All right, nearly 60,000 women participated in the study, which found those who consumed 2 or more diet drinks a day were 30% more likely to have a cardiovascular event, and 50% more likely to die from heart disease than women who never or rarely drank diet drinks. Woo. All right, it says this is one of the largest studies on this topic, and our findings are consistent with some previous data. All right, especially those linking diet drinks to the metabolic syndrome, said Dr. Anker Vyas, all right, lead investigator of the study, who cautioned that further research is required. It says it's too soon to tell people to change their behavior based on this study. However, based on these and other findings, we have a responsibility to do more research to see what is going on and further define the relationship if one truly exists. This could have major public health implications. All right. Older readers might recall that for decades the tobacco industry denied any correlation between disease and smoking. Doctors and celebrities would recommend that people smoke to appear sophisticated or to calm their nerves. All right. Could today's doctors recommend diet drinks? Could today's doctors recommending diet drinks be equally misinformed? Of course. All right. So I'll leave it at that. So you see, man. You see was how poison the food supply is, man. Under Esau Edom's watch, we're living in hell, bro. This is part of the hell, bro. If this is not hell, then I don't know, man. You know, Yahweh Shai needs to come back, man. We're dying out here, man. You know, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Ratazai, I am of the elect, man. We got to get out of here. You know? All right, Ezekiel 4:13. All right, and the Lord Yahweh said, even thus shall the children of Israel eat their defiled bread among the Gentiles, whither I will drive them. All right, so I'll leave it at that. Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying or was edifying. All right, so call Halal Yum, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rakar Quitash. All right, on to the next one. Shalom, shalom.